Lumberjacks have the arduous task of harvesting timber from trees of all sizes, using axes, saws, and whatever else is needed. Put them in a fictional setting and turn the campiness up to 11 to see these lumberjacks do extraordinary things you only hear about in legend. Now they can fight evil or live off in the wilderness never to be seen again, but their presence is still known. They also like to wear plaid flannel. It's basically a job requirement. This topic was suggested by viewer by Felicia Memes, putting me to the task of finding 10 lumberjacks in fiction that have done some noteworthy things, whether they fight evil with an axe and tree trunk or are simply a good influence for the kids. Or maybe they just do their job properly. They could deserve some appreciation for that. And joining me in this video is my footage provider, A.T from Software Agents TV.
Lumberjacks are spooky!
Disclaimer, lumberjacks are not spooky. He's thinking of all the other scary jacks. So let's chop through the top 10 lumberjacks. Number 10, Bear Hugger from Punch-Out. He's the Canadian rep for Punch-Out and maximizes his lumberjackness by chugging maple syrup for breakfast. Since Punch-Out backstory is weak enough to lose to Glass Joe, we don't know much about Bear Hugger's life as a lumberjack outside of that he knows how to use an axe and he's so in tune with the wildlife that bears help him train for matches. However, those aspects alone sound amazing. Various official sources state he's a lumberjack, so we at least have confirmation that he's not just a guy who only wears overalls that lives in the forest. I'm not sure how I feel about his live-action portrayal on the Super Punch-Out arcade poster though. He may not have much going on in the lumberjack department when he's in the ring. How does sticking your tongue out at trees get them chopped down? We have a quota to meet here. But his occupation at least helped him become an alright boxer, more so through the hugging bears portion of it rather than the chopping wood part. And being a fighter that trained with bears in the forest, I think Zangief ought to sue Mr. Hugger for taking his shtick and, oh, never mind. Number 9, Rufus Ruffcut from Wacky Races. Wacky Races was a Hanna-Barbera show that started in the 1960s, where a cast of colorful characters would race on various tracks as antics of the wacky variety would take place. Rufus was one of these racers alongside his beaver companion Sawtooth, riding the Buzzwagon, no doubt created from all the timber he cut down. As the hierarchy of Wacky Races characters goes, Dick Dastardly is S-rank and everyone else is below him, but Rufus at least has him beat in the lumberjack department, and like any good lumberjack, he is great at chopping. He can just cut cars in half with the axes on the sides of his vehicle. That's the level of anything goes that we're dealing with. The most dangerous part of his car are the wheels, which are actually made of buzzsaws. Besides being a horrifying safety hazard, they can cut into bridges to trap the other racers. Just imagine the lethality if this was actually the gritty Wacky Races comic that existed briefly. And yes, this is real. Rufus was much more fond of chainsaws than that. Number 8,
The following segment contains spoilers for Dexter. That is to say, Dexter the serial killer and not Dexter from Hamtaro.
If you were ever planning on finishing Dexter, you've been warned. Number 8, Dexter from Dexter.
Hey, Mr. Top 10 List, did you ever watch Dexter?
No, so I'm probably not qualified to talk about the significance of this entry.
Neither did I, except for a certain scene involving Jamie Murray in a refrigerator.
Too much information.
Okay, we're just gonna rewind a few seconds and redact part of that conversation.
Hey, Mr. Top 10 List, did you ever watch Dexter?
I never finished it, so I'm intrigued to know how he exchanged the serial killer life for the wood chopping life.
Neither did I, but I know that when all is said and done, the series ends with Dexter Morgan going into hiding, living a life of solitude as a lumberjack.
Well, that's a nice career switch. You know, it's hard to be a serial killer.
Considering we know nothing about his lumberjack life when this is revealed, I can at least assess him on how he looks the part. He chose the fashion of plaid and has a pretty rugged beard. Always great selections for lumberjack style, and he's working for a lumber company in Oregon, which is a great location choice for loads of greenery. Seeing as he was held back on this list only because I have no reference on how strong his woodcutting skills are, his ranking here is pretty solid. Number 7, Hey Ho, the robot lumberjack boss from Sonic and Knuckles. This entry was suggested by viewer Graham Chapman when I mentioned I'd be covering this topic. He's a good character to point out since this lumberjack robot is easy to overlook. He's only the first boss of the game who's meant to have an easy attack pattern to help you learn the game while still challenging you. The guy's just casually minding his own business chopping the wood, which happens to get in our way since we're standing in a deforestation zone. It just so happens that the tree parts fly in our direction.
You know, come to think of it, the logger robot does attack you with the tree in the background. I've been playing this game since 1995, and this is the first time I've noticed this. Very clever user who suggested that.
I don't even think we should call this guy an enemy. He's just a robot doing his job of collecting lumber during our rescue mission. It's not his fault things look like an attack to us. Even when he finishes cutting a tree, he doesn't start attacking us directly, he just goes to the next one. It's like he doesn't even notice us. He's a motivated lumberjack, that's what he is. Number 6, Persea from Tales of Symphonia. Persea took the job of lumberjack after her father became too ill to work. Unfortunately, since he carried a big axe, she was too weak to take the mantle at first. To remedy this, she participated in an experiment with X-Sphere, a crystalline invention that awakens dormant power inside one's body. However, the high reward comes with a high risk. It causes weird things to happen to your body when reaping its benefits, along with death if it's ever removed. Persea's body could no longer age, making her a 28-year-old with the body of a 12-year-old and the strength of a robust 32-year-old man. It's pretty magical watching a girl of her stature wield such a massive tool and full tree trunks. She's only about 1 head taller than the axe. Persea's attributes of having a strong and bulky body translate over to the RPG side of the game, having her fill the role of a slow tank. She can deal heavy, hard-hitting damage with her axe and has solid defense, but is incredibly slow when swinging her weapon. Her opponent's fate is as good as those redwoods that met her axe earlier, unless they're really fast. Persea might have an issue there. Number 5, the Brawny Paper Towel Mascot. Lumberjack equals paper towel mascot since the towels are as strong as this guy. There's your logic. It all started in the 1970s when this paper towel brand wanted a mascot. So someone drew up a picture of Eric Soley to look like a lumberjack. And that was the only famous thing Mr. Soley has ever done. Back when the Brawny guy was redesigned in 2002, Soley did an interview with the Chicago Tribune saying Brawny initially had him pose with an axe, but then they thought that would create a negative image. Axes are apparently too scary for the world of paper towel packaging, so they replaced it with a stick, and then eventually thought, well, why bother at this point, and just had a nice headshot, and lost the plaid. He still had all the trees behind him though, which means he's not doing his job. Someone should have told him you can't cut a tree with a stick. The Brawny Man was redesigned in 2002 to fit a more modern man, since Burt Reynolds was apparently no longer fashionable. I guess it worked, since no one was clamoring for their old paper towel mascot back. The intro commercials for him were kind of funny, where they were both watching something romantic and the new Brawny guy was really into it since he's more soft and sensitive, like the new paper towel formula, and the original guy was just like, who cares? Since they both work as lumberjacks, either one is fine by me. I think someone needs to tell the photographer to angle the camera a bit upwards on the second guy though, since I guess it's fine. Number 4.
Number 5, 3.
We're on number 4.
Number whatever is Burly from The Simpsons.
We're not doing that. That's just an obvious parody of the paper towel mascot we just discussed.
What are you talking about? They're completely different.
Huh. Guess I'm convinced.
Chad Sexington is the proud spokesperson of the Burly Company, and
actually, Chad Sexington was a completely fabricated name by Homer in an attempt to make Marge think that the actual Burly mascot was coming over for dinner. This bit was pretty funny for season 13 Simpsons. The show was in the midst of rotting, but still capable of good jokes. This was just the first act though, so any Burly jokes were completely abandoned for the intended episode plotline. I think it could have been funny to see more gags about Marge's lust for the Burly Man, which was inspired by actual market research that women found the Brawny Man attractive, leading to his modern redesign for a greater demographic. I like when after Homer tricks Marge into thinking Chad Sexington was coming to their house, they roll out a line of paper towels like a carpet, and Marge freshens up for him by cleaning her armpits with his paper towels. Not sure how it would have worked for a full episode, but for a 7-minute act, it worked well. Now the real question, how did a parody of the Brawny Man get one spot higher than the actual mascot? Well, it's mostly because Burly got to carry a real axe on his packaging. Number 3, Wendy Corduroy from Gravity Falls. The lumberjack hat and shirt are not just for show. Wendy may not have the stature of your typical lumberjack, but she is certified to chop wood. She was able to translate these skills onto the adventuring side of the show, eventually. She started off being a bored teenager who was more involved in the awkward love story plots.
Now, Wendy spent the majority of Season 1 committing petty crimes and corrupting our youth, but in Season 2, something changed. The gloves were off, the hatchet was unsheathed, and Wendy started kicking people's asses.
We first see her lumberjack skills directly come in handy in the second episode of Season 2, where she was able to reach a hidden tree branch lever for an underground bunker by harnessing herself as she would when cutting at a high elevation. And of course, any good lumberjack that needs to defend herself uses their trusty axe. I'm not sure if I should be concerned with how often she has that axe on her though. You can't just casually store that away like it's a pocket knife. You can thank her father for training her, since he made her enter the lumberjack games every year when she was a kid, readying her for the perils of the woods and getting revenge on scamming unicorns. Really, the whole Corduroy family is full of great lumberjacks. The oldest member is Archibald Corduroy, who we meet as a zombie spirit guy. I like how he activates his beard made of fire when he's enraged. But one episode makes it hard for him to compete against everything we've seen from Wendy. Then you have the other living lumberjacks of Wendy's family, most notably her dad, Manly Dan, who fits the lumberjack cliche, and I would not doubt that his first name is actually Manly. He makes for some great gags, but his personality is a bit too one-note when compared to his daughter.
And Wendy's brothers? They didn't even stand a chance. They don't even have names. That's why they got turned into furniture.
Number 2, Lars and his gang of lumberjacks from the Angry Beavers episode Lumberjack's Delight.
It was through this show that I learned that if a beaver doesn't chew on things, its teeth will grow through its brain and kill it.
I like that the human lumberjacks are legitimate threats to the beavers, since beavers are essentially the lumberjacks of nature. This forest is only big enough for one timber cutting team. These guys are so jolly, they just do their job right and fit the bill of manly lumberjack with a big axe and a big appetite. Their pancakes are as big as them, and they shave with the same axe that chops down the trees. They just function on strength, musk, and black coffee. They also say, or more sing, everything in rhyme, which makes them fun to listen to. Despite being the episode's antagonists, they're not portrayed as bad guys. They're just doing their job, which happens to outmatch the beavers with their overall woodcutting resources. Even though they only appeared in this single 11-minute segment, I think we saw just enough of them to appreciate the antics of these traditional, flannel-loving French-Canadian lumberjacks. For number 1, I was going to say it's a given when robots and lumberjacks are combined, but we had an entry like that earlier, so I guess I have to use the term lumberjack mech fighter as a better shorthand explanation. Number 1, Andrew Graham from G Gundam. Andrew pilots the Lumber Gundam, which is designed with the interests of a lumberjack in mind. He can fight with it, but it also comes with stylish foot spikes that allow him to climb mountains with ease. Its best feature though are its wrist axes, which sit there for convenience sake when Andrew feels the need to chop something, like a tree or his greatest enemy, really just the latter. And by equipping them to his wrists, when he's ready to break them out, he's forced to do this badass arms crossed pose to wield them. I'm not sure if he wants his Gundam to have a theme similar to his occupation, or if he uses this Gundam for more wide-scale lumber gathering jobs. We only see him fight with it, so it's a mystery to me. He wasn't always a lumberjack, and his reasoning for becoming one has a sad story. His wife and him were working at a space security station, but it was attacked by Argo's pirate ship. Argo's an ally of the main team in G Gundam and is not a cruel guy. He was a thief, but not a murderer. However, Andrew remembers Argo's ship crashing into their station, and as Andrew was trying to rescue his wife before she got sucked into the vacuum of space, Argo dropped out of his ship allegedly to just push her off, you know, cause he wanted to be an ass. And totally not for another reason that Andrew misinterpreted.
Sounds like someone needs to get both sides of the story.
From that day forward, Andrew went into hiding and trained for the day he could get his revenge on Argo, being his main motivation for joining the Gundam fight. The lumberjack thing was more because he was living a life of solitude and he might as well take advantage of picking a forest to reside in. In truth, this ruthless revenge story was built upon a misunderstanding. Argo was definitely flying his ship where he shouldn't have, but he was trying to save Andrew's wife instead of push her off for no reason. Thinking about Andrew's original logic, I don't know why someone would bother exiting their crashing ship for the sole purpose of killing a random person they never met and then leave right after. Either way, it's the catalyst that shaped Andrew into the lumberjack he is today, indirectly inspiring his lumber Gundam and sweet beard.
His facial, look at the beard. It's really all of his hair. The hair, the eyebrows, the beard mustache combo.
At least with his revenge fights, they looked pretty awesome, and Andrew shows off he has a career as a wrestler if he ever gets bored of the forest. So Andrew Graham wins this rendition of the Lumberjack games as my #1 pick. Now, what did you think of these choices? Who were your favorites and what fictional lumberjack should not have gotten the axe on this list? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching and we will see you in the next video.